Good afternoon and welcome to the podcast. I'm Nick Drago. Coming up after the break, we discuss the second rounds of the NBA and NHL, including Las Vegas and San Jose's wild ride thus far. Then we'll try to make a sense of what the heck went down at the NFL draft, and of course, we get into baseball and some NASCAR. Vroom vroom, you're listening to Sports, Sports, Sports. And we'll be right back. And welcome to the best podcast this side of the Mason-Dixon line. That, of course, being the Sports Podcast, where we lay out all of the sports news from the most recent week. Now, many of you will notice my voice being a little hoarse today. That is because I'm just getting back from my bachelor party, which was in Chicago this past weekend, hence the delay. My flight was delayed on the way home, so it's kind of been a rough 24 hours. But we're doing okay. Sports, let's get into it. All right, starting off with the NHL, some playoff action. Tampa Bay Lightning literally stormed through the regular season and cruised past the Devils in the first round. They will end up playing the Boston Bruins, who survived a close call with Toronto last week. Now, these two are arguably the best teams in the East, prompting me to call this the Clash of the Titans series, and boy, did it start out with a bang. The Bruins struck first at the end of the first period in Game 1 with a pretty little number by Rick Nash. After that, they traded goals in the second before Boston scored 3 in the third period. With that, the Bruins took the 1-0 lead and looked forward to Game 2. That was last night, final score being 4-2 in favor of the Lightning. For those looking for more Bruins talk, please stick around because we're going to talk about one of their players in just a moment. For the third straight season, we'll see the Capitals and Penguins face each other in the second round of the postseason. Washington has had a long string of bad luck in the second round, and to be honest, barely survived the Blue Jackets. Not only that, but they've only beaten the Penguins once in previous postseason. And the last time that happened was back in the 90s, so about 20 years ago. Pittsburgh, though, has been streaky. They at times look fantastic versus Philly in the last round, but also downright bad at some points. So I've decided to name this the Bitter Rivals Series, considering they've met in the previous two postseasons. Game 1 was looking all Capitals. This was Thursday night. Score was 2-0 very early on in the third period, but then 3 late goals by Pittsburgh turned things around and gave the Pens the W. Game 2, again, was Capital Country, was a 4-1 victory. Jacob Vrana scored the game winner off power play. This kid doesn't play much, but he could end up being a big X factor in the series. Now, what may have turned the tables for Pittsburgh would have been a goal by Patrick Hornquist that was actually called back after a review. A lot of pictures coming out the next day showed the puck was clearly over the line. Game 3, that's going to be tonight, and I'm excited for that one. Now, in the West, we get ready to see a really exciting matchup with Nashville taking on the Winnipeg Jets. Now, Nashville's the defending Western Conference champion, but Winnipeg is a hard-hitting, high-scoring club right now. Considering both of these franchises got their start in the 90s, I've named this the Millennial Series. Winnipeg took an early jump in Game 1, putting the smash on Nashville and taking a 4-1 victory. Hot diggity puppy dog. Game 2 was a little more exciting with these two trading goals and leads all game. Ultimately, Mark Shifley got the equalizer with about a minute to go in the last period, so that sent them to overtime, but then Kevin Fiala for Nashville. He got the double overtime goal and brought home the bacon. Oink, oink. Series tied 1-1 with Game 3 tonight. After that matchup, the matchup we've been waiting to see. Both of these teams swept in the first round of the playoffs, so there's a lot of buzz around what I call the Raiders kerfuffle series after the Oakland Raiders tweeted good luck to their new home in Vegas and basically scored their current home in the Bay. The night sure looked golden in Game 1. Punk slapping the Sharkies 7-0. San Jose would go on to get revenge in Game 2 on Saturday. This one was a crazy double overtime game with Vegas having the potential game winner. It was called back, and then Logan Couture put it in for San Jose in the second OT. After the boredom of the first round, these playoffs are actually starting to heat up now, and I'm getting pumped. Game 3, that was also another overtime game. That was last night with Vegas coming out on top 4-3 in yet another overtime. Playoff leaders right now include Pittsburgh's Jake Gensel and Boston's David Pastrnak at 17 points apiece. Mark Scheifele for the Jets leads in goals with 8, while Crosby, Ovechkin, and Gensel all have 7. In the goaltending world, Marc-Andre Fleury's playing with a fiery passion, hoping to face his former team, Pittsburgh, in the finals. His goals against average in the playoffs is 1. Think about that. In 6 games thus far, actually 7 games, so it might have changed since last night. I apologize, I didn't update that. He's only allowed, on average, 1 goal per game. Probably a little bit higher after letting in 3 last night. Of all the goalies not eliminated, Braden Holtby would be number 2 on the list. He was a 1.95 going into tonight's game in Pittsburgh. Again, I apologize for my voice here. All right. So the chances of a Pee-wee hockey player in Canada to make an NHL squad is 0.01%. This was the message told to Brad Marchand one night before taking the ice at 12 years old. During that game, an opposing player took a run at Brad's little brother, flipping a switch in his head that never went off. Marchand's line was tasked with antagonizing the poor youngster, causing him to draw a penalty that gave Marchand's team the victory. Now, Brad realized that this was a way to get noticed, an antagonizer, something he really already was his whole life. In a well-written piece for the Players' Tribune, Marchand discussed his early life and first few years with the Boston Bruins. What he learned that day on the ice is that he would do whatever it takes to defend a teammate. As he humorously states in the article, if you come for my little brother, just like if you were to come for my little brother, if you were to say anything bad about Patrice Bergeron, I will fight you. So Marchand's intensity and admiration for his teammates allowed him and the Bruins to win the Stanley Cup in 2011. The rumor at the time was that when Chicago won a year earlier, they partied for 16 days. Well, the Bruins tried to accomplish the same feat, but were actually kicked out of Boston after only, he says, about 6 or 7. Marchand brings up some great points on the Bruins, on the attitude required to win the Stanley Cup. And he goes on to refer to Bergeron and how he played with a punctured lung. Zdeno Chara, his longevity going into his 40s. Seriously, though, a punctured lung, that accentuates how much I love hockey. These guys will go out there and do anything it takes to win for their teams. A punctured lung? Seriously? They put all their egos aside for the betterment of the team. Marchand was also kindly asked recently by the NHL to stop licking other players on the ice after he appeared to give some loving mouth action to Leo Komarov in Game 1 against the Leafs in that first series. This article from the Players Tribune was recommended to me by a fan of the program. He'll get a shout out at the end of the show, and it provides a nice, in-depth look at one of the most hated players in the league. I highly recommend for anyone out there who loves hockey and loves to read, go find this article. All right, enough about hockey. Just thinking about it is making me cold. Brr! That was really cheesy. Let's get into some basketball after the break, and then we'll talk MLB action, the NFL draft, and NASCAR, my favorite! Buckle up, Buttercup, sports. We'll be back in a flash.
Howdy ho, amigos. I'm Nick Drago, executive producer and host of Sports. Boy, this sure would be a great place for an advertisement. It's a shame you have to listen to my voice instead. If you have some kind of advertisement you want on the air, contact me directly at sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but it's true. We will literally include whatever you want on the air within reason. And since we don't have a large number of subscribers, I'm willing to do it for free. So remember, that email again is sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. Contact us for more info, and let's get back to the show.
And we're back. The NBA season is rocking and rolling with the playoffs smack dab in the second round. Let's take a look at how those games have fleshed out so far. The first series of the second round includes the Golden State Warriors and the New Orleans Pelicans, both of whom obliterated their first round opponents. Now, the Warriors made beating the Spurs look easy, which honestly it really shouldn't have been. While the Pels swept Portland in the series that went so fast it actually took me 5 minutes to remember who they played. Now, as much as we all love to see the Warriors fall from grace, they literally took a dump in NOLA in Game 1, coming away with the 123-101 victory. Legit, though, I'm not sure why they didn't just wait for the first round to be over before playing this game, but nonetheless, we got some early second-round matchups. If anyone wants to weigh in on that, please email us, sports2xpodcast@gmail.com. We here at Sports have named this the Seaside Series. And then the other big matchup was the Rockets and Jazz. Utah coming off the high of beating OKC in the first round. Even better, though, was watching the Rockets embarrass them in Game 1. The final score of this one was 110-96. And it was great to see a big performance by James Harden, who dropped 41 in an otherwise unexciting game. Harden has been playing very well against Utah all season, averaging 34.3 points per game and has a shooting percentage of .737 against the Jazz. Not your typical average numbers. I would expect the same from what I'm calling the blink of an eye series. In the East, Boston turned on the Jets in Game 7 to get ahead of Milwaukee in the Who Wore It Best series. Meanwhile, the 76ers have been making winning look easy thanks to their young core. Boston's proving that in this league, you can win without a superstar. It really shows how good this squad is, even without Kyrie or Gordon Hayward. We will have to see how they fare, though, in the War for the Loudest Fan series. Game 1 will be tonight. Oh, sorry, I apologize. That was written yesterday. Game 1 was last night, and the Celtics took the win. Game 1 went to Celtics at 113-101. All season, though, these two played 4 matchups, with the Celtics winning 3 of that 4. The most recent, though, went in Philly's favor. All right, LeBron haters, hold on to your jeers as the King is back in round 2. For Cleveland fans, I hope you're enjoying your last moments with him as your guy. Really, it was a crazy series with the Pacers. And really came down to the wire. Perhaps the Cavs can ride that high into the next round as they face the Raptors. Biggest factor in this series is home court advantage. Toronto had the league's best home court record, while Cleveland was about 500 on the road. So basically, if the Raptors win one in Cleveland, this one could be over very quickly. Never count out LeBron, though. In 3 games this season, Cleveland's won the 2 most recent as the season came to a close, both of which were in Ohio. So this series is going to be a stunner, and on this podcast, we're going to refer to this as the all-hype series, because I don't know about you, but I'm hyped up. All right, let's move on to baseball. This weekend, we saw that Boston team crushed by the Rays in 2 of 3. Blue Jays follow the Rangers in 2. 2 of the country's biggest cities, the Yankees and Angels, going head-to-head with the Bombers winning all 3. And they were 9 straight until losing to Houston last night. The O's off in Tiger Country with the O's winning Indians and Mariners in 4-game set, ending with Seattle outscoring them 32-17 and winning 3. Twins' miserable week continues, winning only 1 against Cincy, White Sox, and Royals in the divisional matchup, with Chicago winning 3 of 5 in that series. Astros versus A's was a complete dismantling of Oakland in the last 2 of that 3-game set. Mets get 2 easy wins over San Diego, but the Padres did take 1. Phillies lost to the Braves in 2 of 3. Nashville Nationals continue to look bad, losing 2 of the 3 to the Diamondbacks. Marlins and Rockies ended with the Rockies winning 2 games. Cardinals swept by the Pirates in a divisional matchup. And the Cubs also swept the Bruins this weekend. And I was at Saturday's game, hence the hat. And oh my God, it was freezing. We were all decked out in Cubs gear, so we're all lifelong Cubs fans because we just had to keep warm. The team store loved us. And then the last game was the Dodgers and Giants in a 4-game series with a doubleheader. Giants came away with 4. Okay, standings times. That Boston team, they're at 20-7. Yankees catching up quick, 18-9. Blue Jays 15-12. Rays 12-14. Orioles 8-20. AL Central all around weak division. Cleveland barely 14-12. Tigers 11-15. Twins 9-14. White Sox 8-18. Royals 7-20. Could we be seeing a playoff team with a losing record this season? And in the West, the Stros in first, 19-10. Mariners next, 16-11. Angels drop down to 16-12. A's at 14-4. Rangers 11-8. In the National League, NL East, Mets up 17-9. Braves take second, 16-11. Phillies tied with them at third. Nats at 12-16. Marlins 9-18. Central's been fun with the Pirates taking back numero uno, 17-11. Cubbies 15-10. Cards 15-12. Brewers 16-13. And then you have the Reds there at 7-21. Diamondbacks continue to hold the West at 19-8. Rockies 15-4. Giants 14-4. Dodgers 12-15, and the Padres 10-19. Now remember, those are all constantly changing, so continue to look at the standings, especially with some of those teams moving up and down. League leaders include Manny Machado with a .361 batting average, playing to be traded at this point because the Orioles they're not going to have a great season. Albies from Atlanta has 29 runs. Altuve 40 hits for homers. Haniger, Trout, Didi, Gregorius all with 10, but Blackman, Davidson, Machado, Alonso right behind with 9. Didi is also the leader for RBIs at 30. For pitchers, it's Garrett Cole with 61 strikeouts, Max Scherzer with the most wins at 5, Johnny Cueto with a .084 ERA, the highest among starters, and wow, someone get that guy some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. And Diaz for the Mariners, leading in saves at 11. All right, we're going to take one more commercial break before the big finish, but still to come, NFL Draft Talk, along with our predictions for the season. We update you in the world of NASCAR, and of course, mail time. So don't go anywhere, fans, because sports will be right back. And boy, do I need a drink of water right now.
Hi, Nick Drago again. I'm still waiting on you to contact me about putting your ad on my show. Remember, friends, I'm offering this for free. We want to keep building our viewership, and it would be a great opportunity for your business, or it's a great spot for just a personal message. Sports would love it if you would advertise with us, and I'll advertise anything within reason. So if you or a friend would like to have your advertisement present on our show, please contact me at sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. I'll be waiting patiently by my computer.
And we're back. This past weekend was the NFL draft, and a whole lot of crazy stuff happened. Let's recap the first round. First and foremost, I think the entire world would like to know exactly what the Browns were smoking prior to this draft. With the first overall pick of the 2018 NFL draft, the Browns selected Baker Mayfield. Now, granted, he's a great competitor, a proven winner, and it's important to note that his passion can be either a blessing or a curse to whatever franchise he ends up playing for. Well, we know it's going to be the Browns now, of course. Very reminiscent of the Johnny Manziel pick, but he stands at 6 feet tall, so he might need a booster seat if he wants to see above his full-sized NFL lineman. I really hope I'm wrong about this one, but this move is kind of a laughable reminder of Cleveland Browns' past, present, and future. At number 2, the Giants took Saquon Barkley, which signifies that they truly believe Eli Manning has another Super Bowl in him. With Barkley, Manning, and Odell Beckham, be ready for Big Blue to be roaring this year. At pick number 3, it was Jets selecting Sam Darnold from USC, a player they assumed would have been taken first overall. The question now is if he can be the quarterback of the future. USC quarterbacks usually struggle in the NFL, so we'll see how that goes. And as things couldn't get any weirder for the Browns, they took Denzel Ward, who in nobody's book was a top 5 pick. Bradley Chubb would have been a much better pick, but he'll be playing with Von Miller after being taken by Denver. Quentin Nelson to the Colts. Josh Allen, who many thought would be number 1, went to Buffalo. And then there some other big names taken were Josh Rosen by the Cardinals, who said he was pissed to be selected so late. Colton Miller taken by the Raiders, surprising considering they needed more defensive help. Lamar Jackson, who we spoke about a few times on this program, was selected by the Ravens after they traded up for a second first-rounder. Best name on the draft board goes to Uchenna Nwosu, taken by the Chargers in the second round. Now, in a recent email from the fan, I was asked who I think has the hardest schedule in the upcoming NFL season. So we're going to talk about a few different teams here. The first team that jumps out to me is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, beyond the fact that they play New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Carolina twice, they also play those teams once. They play Philly, Pittsburgh, and the Giants before getting a bye week in week. They play all their divisional matchups plus New Orleans, Tampa Bay. They play all their divisional matchups plus Pittsburgh, Philly, and the Giants before having a bye week in week 8. I told you, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. So it might be a rough start for Atlanta, but they could bring it home in the end of the season. If the Jaguars maintain the same level of intensity as last year, they'll likely have another good season with a light schedule. Rams appear to be on the cusp of a renaissance, but they have to get through the Vikes, Seattle, Denver, Green Bay, New Orleans, and again the Seahawks before a late bye week, and eventually defending champ Philly at the end of the season. So I'd expect them to take a slight step backwards, even with all the talent they brought in this year. Now, speaking of the defending champs, they too have a tough schedule, but the fact that they held on to Nick Foles, in my opinion, is clutch. You have no idea what Carson Wentz is going to come back as. The Jets will have no doubt grabbed headlines with the pick of Sam Darnold, and they too have a fairly light schedule, but they're probably going to miss the playoffs. Matt Patricia will get a trial by fire, playing the Packers, Panthers, Seahawks, Vikings, Rams, and most important, his former team, the Patriots. All of them at home. So don't expect much from the Lions this year. Considering that the fan who sent me this request is a big Bills fan, don't hold your breath for Buffalo. Even with Josh Allen as the new QB, they have a tough one. They have some tough ones early on, including the Patriots, Packers, and Vikings. But if they can survive those early battles, get a late seasonal rally, I think a playoff bid is possible for this team. And for those of you who have maybe a different view than I do, please email us, sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. Prior to the season, we're going to do a whole football extravaganza. So be ready for that one. We got all summer, though, folks. Let's not get crazy just yet. All right, let's start talking about some racing. The fine folks at NASCAR were down in Talladega for the Geico 500. The winner of this race was Joey Logano, winning his first race of the season. Along with that, he'll slide into second in the standings behind Kyle Busch, who's number 1. Kevin Hardwick sits at 3, and Clint Bowyer, along with Kurt Busch, are behind him. For you racing fans looking for more, well, bend over Dover, because that's where the next race will be on Sunday the 6th. And Formula One fans will have to wait 2 weeks until the Gran Premio de España. Moving on, let's get into some mail. George Hawkins of Rhode Island asks if Tom Brady is going to retire anytime soon. And my response to this is, why would he? Brady has been to 2 straight Super Bowls and doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Once again, the Patriots look primed for playoff success. And you know what? While I'm on the subject, expect Gronk to come back too. Honestly, who would pass up another chance at greatness, even if they get there by cheating? I didn't say it. Okay, I kind of did. I also humorously saw a post detailing the Patriots trading Gronkowski for Julio Jones. That would certainly be something, but I'm not expecting that one. And then we got a word from the young gun, Jamie Grum, that he went to his very first Cubs game, and he enjoyed it. So maybe there's hope for him in baseball after all, but for now he's still sticking with hockey. Special thanks, as usual, to our content editor and creator designer of our logo, Johanna Albert. Music for this podcast is a song called Golden Sunrise by Josh Woodward. A link to his website can be found in the show notes. Other thanks goes to Lois Butler for giving some likes, and the gentleman who wrote in to ask about Brad Marchand and the NFL predictions. That's Brendan O'Keefe. Thank you, Brendan. Also, our other emailer this week, George Hawkins. Thanks, George. And how could I forget the young gun Jamie Grum continuing his sports odyssey? Jason Coots, we got a like from some other friends out there. So if you'd like your name, question, or message read on the show, email us sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. Also, find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and, oh my gosh, we have a Twitter account now. Tweet. It's at Sports3xpodcast. I suck at tweeting, so we're going to see how this goes. All right, so some games coming up for this weekend. Next week at least. NHL and NBA second rounds are off and running. Let's enjoy some action there. Houston Astros and the Yankees rematch the ALCS this week. Astros took game 1 already last night. Dodgers and Diamondbacks in a series between the team that should be in first and the team that really should not be in first. And plus, this Saturday is the Kentucky Derby, so dust off those floppy hats and pour yourself some mint juleps. Move my microphone there with my hat. I like mint juleps. I don't know about you. And with that, our program comes to an end. I'm going to be honest with you, folks. I have a splitting headache. So be sure to like, comment, share, email us, Twitter us, and drink a whole lot of milk because sports is here to stay. Be ready for an exciting episode next week where I train a rabid bear to do sit-ups. Email again is sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. I'm Nick Drago, and thank you all for being such a great listener. Good night.